if I'm not banking on myself and I'm working for somebody else, it starts to be soul crushing. And I had but you get those days where you're like, oh my God, why am I doing this? Once you walk into this room, you are part of my artwork.
Welcome back to the DreamWalk podcast, where we sit down with entrepreneurs, creators, and dreamers to talk about the real stories behind the work they do, the risks, the struggles, and the creativity, and of course, the purpose that keeps them going. Today's guest is someone whose story blends art, culture, entrepreneurship, and community in a really unique way. He's the owner of The Waiting Room, an intimate bar and creative space in the San Juan Islands that feels less like a business and more like stepping into someone's world. He's also an artist whose work reflects identity, memory, movement, and everyday life in a deeply personal way. Roberto Moya, welcome to the DreamWalk.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Right, so Roberto, before we dive into the deeper parts of your journey, I'd love for people listening to get to know you in your own words. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and what The Waiting Room is all about?
Yeah, my name's Roberto Moya. I am from Tuxpan, Veracruz. It is a tiny town in the coastal part of the Veracruz Gulf. And I own an intimate bar, like you said. You described it so well that I don't even know what to say. I love to host people, but I also love to show them different things. And I hope that when you end up in this tiny little island, that you come to the top of the mountain and you find me and you're like, okay, that was kind of worth it, And so that's what I try to provide here.
Yeah. Okay, so I love that. And what's interesting about your story is that it didn't begin, there in Washington, but it began in Tuxpan, Veracruz, like you mentioned. Can you please tell us, what was your childhood like growing up there?
Yeah, my parents are fairly artistic people, and my father grew up in Tuxpan, and my mother comes from Mazatlan, Sinaloa, which is on the other coast, and that itself is an interesting story of how they met. But my upbringing was filled with art, and my father was the director of the museum, the history museum there. And so I was exposed to a lot of Mayan and Nahuatl and Huasteco art that I internalized a lot and I really enjoyed, as well as a lot of European things that my dad would bring from his travels. And so I was exposed to a lot of things as a young kid. And I think that's really shaped my art in the way that I present the things that I enjoy.
Yes, and I think that you can always tell when someone carries their roots with them. And I feel like your culture and upbringing are woven into both your art and the atmosphere that you create. So can you tell me what values from your Mexican upbringing still shape the way you live and work today?
I really, the way I work here, because we're talking about the business itself, is that I try to have a place for the locals to come and congregate. And that is what Mexican people are all about. It's where you go somewhere and you talk bad about people. That's what I'm trying to provide. Somewhere fun to have, meet a new person. And that is so Mexican, right? Like, I feel like when you are in Mexico, you are hosted by the people who surround you and who happen upon you. And they will treat you to their, to their last cent if they have it. They will add more water to the beans, we say. We have a saying in Spanish. If somebody's coming over, just put more water to the beans. It'll be fine. We'll figure it out, right? And that's exactly what this business is like. And I think the Pacific Northwest is a very cold place, and I try to bring some warmth to it. I try to bring that Mexican warmth to this area.
Wow, I love that how you said that you're trying to bring warmth, to the waiting room or to the business that you have to basically make it feel like something that everyone can come to if they need like a good conversation or a good beverage to drink. So I love that idea. So at some point, life takes you from Mexico all the way to Washington and eventually the San Juan Islands. So which is a pretty big leap geographically and culturally. So can you walk us through that journey?
Yeah, I was living in Manhattan for a bit, and I was working in fashion. And that was itself something completely different than what I'm currently doing. But it was that New York mentality of hustle, And my mother wanted to retire, and she moved here in 2017. And then I thought she was a little crazy for doing so because, it's crazy to move here. And then COVID happened, and I wanted to be closer to my mom. And that's really what brought me to the island. Once again, me being Mexican and an only child, I needed to be closer to my mother. And I saw this place, this room was for sale. Like the business that was in here. And so I purchased the business, which was a chocolate shop, with the intention of turning it into the waiting room at some point. And then, I did that a couple of years ago, and I'm still going. I'm going on my third year. This will be my third summer. And so I'm looking forward to it.
And when you said, everybody, since it was a pandemic, everybody really experienced COVID. And thank you very much for sharing that. It wanted you to really take yourself to your mom and be with your mom. And I think Mexicans and Filipinos share a lot in culture. Earlier you said
Yes,
where
yes, we do.
you just want warmth when you meet someone new. You make sure that they feel at home or they won't feel that they're not included. And I think again, both Mexicans and Filipinos really share. Because what I remember, what I always see in movies that have Mexicans in them, they always have this grill outside of their house, like at the backyard, and then they just have like the entire neighborhood there. And yeah, that's the same for us in the Philippines. It's just
we have a lot in common.
Yeah, whether in fact most of our food also are like yours. Like you have chicharron, we have chicharron.
You have different type of tamales too.
Right.
I had a lot of Pinoy friends growing up. I went to high school in Long Beach, California. I think there's a lot of Pinoy friends there, and I met a lot of Khmer people too, and we have a lot in common with Cambodians too. And I feel like it's like a cultural thing. It's like most of the warm countries are fairly warm, and then up top, like in the colder countries, I think people tend to stick to themselves. And up here in the Pacific Northwest, it's attracted a lot of tech business, and that's a lot of very high mentality people who worry about staying in between the lines, and so you get a lot of people who don't know how to enjoy themselves. And so that's like cultural differences, and I think that's also really nice because when you travel around the world, you want to experience different things, and so that's how this culture is, and I welcome it, and I thank it, but I also want to bring some warmth to it. I appreciate it for what it is, and I also love how you can be on a hike here in the Pacific Northwest, and you pass out, you've been up in this walk for an hour by yourself, and then all of a sudden somebody else is crossing you, and you don't have to say hi to them. Isn't that so weird? As a Mexican, I'd be like, what are you doing here? Like all this stuff, but no, you can literally pass people here without saying hi to them, and it's culturally appropriate. It's very interesting how different we can all be, but also how beautiful that we can all live together.
Yeah, and I'm very excited to actually hear what that experience that you have translate, or how that translates to you starting the waiting room. So now let's start talking about the waiting room, because this place has such a unique identity. So you have been explaining it as we started the podcast. So for someone who has never stepped foot inside, for myself and for the audience that we have who are yet to visit the waiting room, how would you describe it to us?
It is like walking into your cool friend's basement. Like it's tiny. The ceiling's really low. Like I'm touching the ceiling as I'm sitting here. This wall right here this wall right here is you can see from one end. That's the one side of it. This is the other side of it, and that is as big as it is. And then it goes a little deeper that way. And I have a television and some DVDs up on the wall.
Okay, so even the name itself, Roberto, feels very artistic and emotional, the waiting room. So sounds like there's a story behind it. So where did that name come from?
This room is from 1890, and for a long time in the Western times, in those times when there were Western people here, settlers, this was the barber shop, and it was where you would get a haircut here, and you would go to the back, and there would be a place to take a shower, and a bathtub. One of the oldest bathtub on the island is here next to me in the building next to me.
You still have it there?
They have it there. It's not mine, but yeah, they have it there. Yeah, they still have it there. Can you believe it? And so, but for a little bit, there used to be a dentist office in the room next door to it, and there's a little cutout where I put the fridge, and you can walk through there to the other room, because this was the waiting room for the people that would come to the dentist office, and so they'd sit in here, and the ladies would be typing away and taking the whatever, and then people would wait and read their little magazines and newspapers and stuff. And I thought it was an appropriate name for a bar, right? Like, what else is a bar but a place that you sit and wait? You're just kind of waiting for the next thing to happen. Yeah, it's a drink in a box, but yeah.
Okay, now I see that the waiting room, and I think you also mentioned earlier that you wanted to put up DVDs up the wall, and you want to have them rented out. So I think it's like a one-stop shop. You also have your art there, and it's just where people can actually wait. So I think that totally makes sense of the name that you chose for your bar, and I think that's very, very interesting. And earlier, Roberto, you also mentioned that it's like walking into your friend's basement instead of like a traditional bar, which I think makes it more personal. So can you tell us why is that important for you to like create that kind of atmosphere?
Yeah, I think it's mainly because this room is so little that it's impossible for me not to be at the center of it, right?
Mhm.
And if I'm and I work every day. I open every day. I come in here at 3 and I stay until 8 or 9 or 10, depending on the crowd. And I couldn't not make it about me. I tried to not make it about me, but people keep demanding me, so I'm gonna give them what they want. And so it needed to feel like that, and I got a couch, and the couch like really makes the room, like it really, like when I got it, I was finally like, oh, okay, like now I get it, right? And as I'm putting the paintings up, I think it'll even make more sense, because I plan to fill this whole wall up with paintings. I have other
Mm.
framed ones. These are my bigger format ones, but I plan to have a lot for sale, for consumption.
Yeah, so I can see all of your art hanged. Maybe not all of your art, because during the before the podcast meeting, you showed me several of your art, and hopefully later on you will be able to show us an art that you can explain. What the concept was, why you chose to do that art. So we will be talking more about your art later on. But for people listening, Roberto, who might visit one day, what does the waiting room currently offer in terms of drinks, food, and maybe overall experience?
So I have a very large collection of different liquids that you can drink. Most of them are alcoholic. I have very good natural wines from the Pacific Northwest area, as well as France and Italy, and I even have things from Japan. And I try to have some of the best selection of the Pacific Northwest, what the microbreweries in the Pacific Northwest have to offer. And so I try to find really fun can collaborations between different brewers and in the Pacific Northwest, as well as cider that is made locally. And lots of non-alcoholic options that range between things that have, ashwagandha or lion's mane in order to make you feel happy or elevated, to, mineragua, which is my favorite Mexican drink. It's bubbly water. Yeah.
I think I was able to hear from Jeff, but Jeff, if it wasn't you that I heard it from, please correct me if I'm wrong. Later, when I work, I heard that there are some limitations serving cocktails and food service right now. Is that true? And if those restrictions disappeared tomorrow, Roberto, what would you love to create that you can't currently do?
Yeah, so I would love to have alcohol in here. I would have some mezcales and tequilas that you could not find anywhere else in the Pacific Northwest. I would source them. I have the sourcing for them, and I would have them here by the glass, which is also something very novel. But I can't do that currently, because in Washington State, the liquor law says that you have to be a restaurant in order to serve alcohol. It's a limitation that is put upon this from the state, and you have to have 4 entrees made on premise. So Jeff is right. He said that to you.
Yes, he mentioned that. He mentioned that to me. Okay, so hopefully, if ever you are given that opportunity, I think it would be something that you would be able to offer, and that keeps people going, because like you said, I'm not sure if there are other bars there, not really familiar, but those are things that are not really offered at the San Juan Islands. So hopefully, and then hopefully it brings out more people to your bar, and not just for the alcohol, I think, but again, to actually experience the entire thing in the waiting room. Okay.
Yeah, I try to make up for it by being cool.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so I wanted to now talk about more about the waiting room, and just talk about entrepreneurship, basically. So I wanted to ask this question. It's something I really wanted to ask you, because I think a lot of people quietly wonder this about entrepreneurs. So financially, you could probably make more money working, a stable job, like you did. Like in Manhattan, you said you worked a fashion job. So why did you choose the uncertainty of building something yourself, or having a business?
I think that's a great question. I think to be honest with you, there's a point in capitalism where you have to kind of step back and be like, how much do I have to make money for somebody else, right? That's one. And the other one is, if I'm not banking on myself and I'm working for somebody else, it starts to be soul crushing. And I had a lot of, I'm older than I look, and I had a lot of jobs that were a little soul crushing, like inside of a vault, literally not being able to look outside at the fresh air. And this is endlessly better to be scrounging for, to make money and make ends meet. But I spend my days painting and taking pictures. And then I come in here and I meet some amazing people, and I might not make a ton of money, but at least I feel like I'm paying my life. I'm living my life with a purpose, and that purpose is coming through. And every day I take it with appreciation and gratefulness.
Wow, that's such a real answer, Roberto. So, what's something people don't really realize about owning a small bar or a creative business? Is there something that we might not really picture out or understand why you've decided to own the waiting room and a creative business?
Yeah. I've always wanted to own a little piece of something. Like I grew up very poor, and like it wasn't. I didn't have a lot of stuff, and now I have stuff, and I have stuff to show people. And I love hosting, like I said. And when I'm having a great day, it makes sense. And when there's nobody in here, I feel like I'm going insane. But that is the thing that nobody tells you is like sometimes nobody will come in, and it'll be okay because 10 people will come in tomorrow that didn't come in the day before. But you get those days where you're like, oh my god, why am I doing this? But those days are hopefully far between each other.
Yeah, and I remember yesterday when we had the meeting that we had, you really talked about how what you're doing right now really serves you or really serves your purpose. And I'm not going to
Mhm.
spoil everybody by telling them what it is. So we will be talking about that later on. Eventually, we will get to know what your dream is or what the ultimate plan is in your life.
Mhm.
So, but I would like to focus more on your art now, your art and your creativity. So, art seems very deeply connected to your identity. So, not just something you do, but part of how you also process life. When did you? I know you said your father was a creative director for an art museum, so he was,
Mhm.
and your mom is also fairly creative and artistic.
She was a Yeah,
Mhm.
she's a photographer. She was the
Mm.
photojournalist for the newspaper there in Tuxpan. Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, I could really say that's a very good mix. And then now
Mhm.
with you, you said you like to do art and you like to take photographs. So can you tell us when did your relationship with art really begin? Is it by looking at your mom and your dad, what they do, or was it for a different time in your childhood or in your life that you started this relationship?
I think I was born an artist. When I was little, I used to dress up as the Little Prince and go around pretending to be Napoleon, and and
Mm-hmm.
and and I have always loved drawing, and I have always loved creating little worlds. I'm an only child, and so I lived a lot inside of comics and picture books and literature, and I love that those worlds exist. That you can visit them, and they're there for when you need them, and you can put them down. And it's the same thing with a painting. When you walk up to a painting in a museum and you see it for the first time in real life and you see the strokes of the brush from the artist, you experience it. You experience it as a real physical being that is in the building, in the room with you. It's in front of you. And that has, I think, through time and understanding the world as we keep moving forward, I think that those pieces hold a lot of emotions, and we see them, and that is beautiful, and I really appreciate that about the world, that it keeps going despite us being our dumb little selves or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And that's something very interesting with art. Art isn't just something that you look at because there are different forms of art. I'm not sure if you mentioned that. Oh, your dad was also into sculpting, so he was a sculptor,
Hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
this is, I think, for sculptures, it's although you're not allowed to. I'm not sure you're not allowed to touch them, but like you said,
Yeah.
from the brushes of from the strokes of the brushes, you actually get to feel the art, and I think that's something very interesting because different people feel art differently. So when I think I shared it to you yesterday as well that when I go to like an art museum at mall. So again, in the Philippines, there aren't any art museums, just art conventions where you go to a mall and just see the art.
Hmm.
You actually experience them. You don't just see. You get to know what the story is behind that art, and I think that's something really, really interesting. And going back to your type of art, you also showed me some of your art yesterday, which are really interesting because some of them you used scrap paper, some of them
Hmm.
your art they're on bandanas, on
Yeah.
cardboard. So these are very
Yeah.
interesting materials.
Yeah.
Some other people may even consider these materials already trash. So can you tell
Yeah.
us what draws you to those materials?
I think for a long time it was necessity, right? Like for a long
Mhm.
time it was just like not having anything else, not having the access to better products or better things, and I refused to be, boxed in by a
Mhm.
box. And so I was like, I'll make art with the box, because what other way to turn it upside down than to be like, this already looks like a frame, so I might as well
Mhm.
use it. And it's just through having, I sold a couple pieces, and then I was able to invest in myself a little bit more and buy myself a nice camera and buy myself, a nice pair of gouache color and acrylics and stuff like that. That then I've started to buy a canvas, and I started to do that, and I think it's been necessity. It's been necessity.
No, that's very
Which is the
powerful.
mother,
So
yeah,
it's almost like
the mother of
giving.
all invention, right?
Yes, yes, and like I said, it almost feels like you're giving forgotten things another life. So you're like
Yeah.
bringing them back to life and actually bringing them more. Because yesterday you showed me the painting you did on a cardboard box. It was just supposed to be for a 6-pack that you said yesterday, but you turned it
It
into a
does,
frame.
yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
turned it into a very beautiful painting, and
Yeah.
who thinks about that? So that really shows how artistic and how creative you are. That you see
Yeah.
everyday items that you can turn into very beautiful art, that you can also showcase in the waiting room. And I
Mhm.
believe your artwork also changes themes over time. So you showed me the inside the car. I'm pretty excited. Maybe
Yeah.
you want to show us that as well. You
Yeah.
also showed me the.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
you
I'll show
can
you that
show
one.
them. Go
So
ahead.
all of last year I did all VWs, like different styles of VWs. I love to draw them, and so I made one that's like a Moebius strip, and I put it on the sweatshirt. I put it on the back here. Yeah, I don't know if
Oh,
you can
okay.
see it.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can.
yeah,
Wow,
and it
that's so
says
cool.
at at the bottom it says Roberto likes you, because my website is I like you WR, like waiting room. I like you
Mhm.
WR.com. And then I was there for this season. I wanted to do the views from the inside of the car,
Mm.
looking out the world, but I wanted the world to be landscapes that were unknowable, like unreachable, but also very feminine. I want them to be like Mother Nature, and I want them to be appreciative of that and not expose her, not in a bad way. And so I started to make the views from inside the car, and then I also have my animals in space, because I really appreciate the animals that went up in space. I feel like it was an interesting endeavor to make these creatures have to undertake. And so I have Felicette, who's the first cat to go
Cat.
up into space. And I have my dog that I imagine going up into space as well. And I also have a Laika, and I plan to do the chimps that went into space as well. And I want that to be a whole collection, and then and have that be those separate worlds that kind of intertwine in between spaces sometimes. Yeah.
So I'm quite curious. I really want to go back to the inside the car part that you've been doing. I'm curious. Do you like go inside the car, take a photo, and then you paint it or draw it, or do you do it while you're inside the car? And you, just for a curious mind, just for my information, I think.
Yeah.
What's the process during when you paint
I
it?
The process is that in my mind, I can see the inside. I can picture myself inside the car, outside the car. I can mold the car. I can make it whatever car I want. I have been in enough cars that I can figure out where the elements are in them,
Correct.
and I can do it all by I can do it in one line. I could do it in one line. I drew a car with my left hand. I'm just I have been doing it a long time, and I really enjoy drawing cars, and so I have perfected drawing cars. So no, I didn't have to take a picture. No, I can do it just from my mind. Yeah.
That's very, very interesting and very, very cool. And I like how you
Yeah.
incorporated nature, because I
Mhm.
think, I'm not sure if we have the same experience, but every time I'm inside a car, I always look outside of the window, because there's just so much things that you can see that you don't always get to see every day.
Mhm.
So when you travel from one
Yeah.
place to another, and when you said capturing the unknowable is very,
Mhm.
very powerful. It's like actually looking through someone else's eyes and also experiencing that certain area. So when you showed
Yeah.
me that certain there's like a red roof, like a house. Was that a
Yeah,
house?
I can show it to you right now. Do you want me to get it?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. You can show it to everyone.
Want to grow your business but worried your financials aren't strong enough to back it up? Most business owners don't even realize what they're missing until it's too late. At Count on That, we guide you through every stage, from compliance to consulting, so you're always ready to grow, get funding, or sell. It starts with a DreamWalk, where we learn what you're trying to accomplish and design a clear path forward. We offer 3 service tiers: compliance, growth, and freedom. Every tier builds on the one before, so you only pay for what you truly need. Don't get stuck guessing. Click the link below to schedule your DreamWalk.
It's very tiny.
There you go. Yeah, it is very tiny. So I can't imagine what tools you need to use to make something very tiny. That's very pretty. And you said this was
Thank you.
from a place in
Yeah,
the island?
this is on the island. It's in it's called False Bay, and it's this giant just what are they called, barns? And I imagined uh from the view of the driver's side, and he's just looking out there, or that they're looking out there, and then in the little thing you can see the sky. It would be up here. I tried to
Oh,
make it.
yeah.
Yeah, I tried to make it as detailed as I could, but it's very tiny, and also the reason that I like to do this framing is because when I used to I had to travel a lot. I used to travel a lot around the world, and everywhere I went, I was always like very I had my anxiety as an artist, as a young kid, like traveling and doing all this stuff, and I felt all this depression and anxiety and all this stuff, and I was unhappy, and I was like, I kept changing the setting that I was in, but I kept finding myself there and being unhappy, and I was like, the only thing that is constant is that I am here, that I am present, and that I am the one that needs to change internally in order to become a little more happy with myself, and so it's kind of like an inward look at a car, because you are in it, but the world is beautiful outside and the sky is blue,
Wow, that's a very, very powerful way to express, the art that you have. It's very nice, and hopefully later on we will be able to see all the other art that you can share with us, and also later on we will be plugging in your website, just so people would know if they want to buy some of your art, they know where to go. So we'll be doing that. And another thing that I noticed is that waiting room isn't just a bar. Like you said, or like I said earlier, it's like a one-stop shop where you see DVDs or artwork. There's also merchandise, branding, design, and it almost feels like its own little culture that you have in the waiting room. So you've created sweatshirts, which you actually showed us a while ago.
Yeah.
And you have
that I'm wearing,
bandanas, you have posters and other pieces connected to the business. So why was the building that identity important to you?
So it's actually the wording, right? Like, so it's my follow me on Instagram, Weight Room, WAITROOM, and I believe that it's just like, you have to like arrive and calm yourself and wait, because sometimes life is what happens while you're making plans. That's what John Lennon said. And you have to have that moment of breath and enjoying the flowers, and I kind of internalized that, so it's like I'm a waiter, because it works in English in different ways, because I'm waiting on people here, and my fans can be called waiters too, because we're all waiting here. And there's so much to do with the wording that I love a cheeky phrasing and something that works on its head. And the other cool thing about it is this is my font that I wrote this myself. I made a font, and my name is Roberto Moya, and it's waiting room, and this is backwards and upside down.
Inverted.
And it works both ways. And that's what I have like at the bottom of the things too, and I try to be very intentional about things, because I like to think about things very deeply.
Yeah, and we can really show, or we can really see that throughout the podcast that we have now, how intentional you are, how you always think about what your next move is basically going to be. But how about how you want people to feel when they take a piece of the waiting room home with them? So for example, they take an art with them, or I'm not sure, some of your art or some of your merchandise. What do you want them to feel?
I think it comes down to what it says on the sweatshirt, and it says it on the bandana too, which it says, Roberto likes you. I like you. Like, I like you for who you are. I like you for coming in. I like you for buying things from me. I like that you have experienced me and want to have some part of me. And that makes me feel nice. It makes me feel wanted. It makes me feel like I should stick around and keep doing what I'm doing. And if I make people feel like, I want to reciprocate that. And that is all I want, is I want this to be a good little interaction,
So at this point, Roberto, do you see the waiting room as more of a business? Is it an art space or a community experience?
I see it as it is an art space. This is an abstract art, Once you walk into this room, you are part of my artwork. You are walking into my artwork, and everything being so intentional. So I would love to stop paying the insurance as a bar and start paying the insurance as a gallery, but it's not going to happen. But the bar pays the bills, and the art hopefully is a draw enough that someday I can just keep doing the art and let the bar be too as well. Because I plan to have this place for as long as they'll keep me here. Them being the greater them. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much for sharing that, Roberto. And I think one thing you also said that really stayed with me, one thing you said yesterday that really stayed with me was that you'd rather be remembered as a good person than simply a successful person. Where does that mindset come from?
it comes from perspective, right? From having stepped back and had a little bit of a New York hustle mentality for a bit, where you're like, I gotta make the most money I can, and screw some people, and and it's like, no, like, maybe we don't have to be like that. I can also leave a nice little mark in this world. I can be a good person and make it easier for somebody else.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people really spend years chasing success before asking what actually matters to them. So
yeah,
from your journey, like from Mexico to Manhattan to right now in San Juan, how has your life journey changed the way you define success today?
It's changed quite a lot. I would say even at the I'm having to look at every day very gratefully, and I'm every day that I'm in this space and I wake up alive. I am a lucky man, and I'm a lucky man that lucky things happen to, and it's beautiful. And it wasn't like that for a long time, growing up, and it wasn't like that all the time in Manhattan. And now it feels like I've arrived and I'm kind of making my little nest.
Yeah. And can you tell? Go ahead.
No, I said it feels nice.
And can you also tell us, and the audience that we have, what does a meaningful life look like to you now? So you've had the entire journey. So what does it look like for you now?
It looks like more of this. It looks like I sit here for, the rest of this year and I meet more people and I make more art and I host more parties and places to gather. And I just continue, until I can't do this anymore. I think that's what I have to I have arrived, and maybe it goes up more and maybe more people get to know me and maybe more people want my artwork, and maybe I can put up more books and art. I have a lot of plans. I have a lot of things to show the world. I've just started, so I hope to do this for a bit.
Wow. And have there ever been moments, because like you said, you wanted to, how it looks like now is what you always want to continue. So have there ever been moments where you almost gave up on your creative dreams or the entire journey and just, I want to be focused on maybe business, more of the business and less of the art that I'm doing or the creative stuff that I'm doing?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, when I first bought this place, I had big ideas for, the rest of the town and how I was going to take over and how I was going to do this and do that, and like make it nice here, all these things, I've been humbled, It's like when you go out and you go out into the water, you're thinking the beach is nice and it's nice and calm, and then the water's like, no, like smashes you and then it spits you back out. That's exactly what happened to me. That happened to me, for the first 2-3 years of this business, and now that I'm on my, third, I feel like, okay, like I'm going to come up for water and I know what's going to happen, like maybe I'll stay in the shore for a little bit.
Okay. And you mentioned there have been times where it's all shaky. There may be times when you have been doubting if you're going to continue. So what kept you moving forward during these wavy times?
It's been different types of love, like, the love of my mother, the love of my companions, the love of my friends, the love of my, wanting like their love and persistence in their own lives, make me feel like, I guess I have to also keep doing this, because that would really, because that's all we got to do in this world is just keep living. And I think it's nice that people have shown me love and I can love them back.
Wow, that's very, very powerful and very interesting. How love just shapes and just is the real reason that you keep on going. It's not just love from people, but I think also the love of what you're actually doing. I think you also mentioned yesterday that it is what wakes you up in the morning. And when you wake up in the morning and you know that it's going to be the same, most of the time, same people and the same experiences that you and the waiting room is able to offer to the people who come or who go to the waiting room. That's the love that you have, and that's what you love to do every day. And I think that ultimately leads to the happiness that you have and the purpose, right? So when people experience your art or spend time in the waiting room, Roberto, can you tell us what kind of impact do you hope it leaves on them?
I think, I think it's a case-by-case personal basis. You walk in here with something, you walk in here with a thirst for something, and hopefully I can quench that thirst. And it can be, it can be both physically and it can also be emotionally or through conversation, And I think I like that it's not the same for everybody, and we have unique experiences. I think that's important. I think that's why you come in.
Yeah, and I think this is the bigger question that I have for you for this podcast is, what's the bigger dream behind all of this? Like everything, like your art, the waiting room, the community that you're trying to build. So what is the bigger dream behind that?
The bigger dream, it'd be to live a full life, have a family, have a successful artistic career, whatever that might mean, and however it might show itself. I would be appreciative of it, and to not feel like I've spent my time angry at the world, like I spent it in a calm and happy place, and I was able to bring that to people. And so I think that's the culmination of a good life.
That's very interesting, because when you said you spent your life angry, I couldn't see that with you now. You have been very smiling throughout the podcast that we have, and you have that kind of vibe and energy that no one would ever imagine that you maybe spend some of your time angry. So what keeps all of that in? I mean, what glues all of that in, that you're able to, people don't see that you were that kind of person?
Well, no, I mean, I wasn't like just going around being all pissed off at the world. But I had a huge chip on, I had a huge chip on my shoulder, like the things that I grew up with, and even what, how, just what life hands you, and it's still to this day, sometimes somebody will say something to me and it'll piss me off. And, I got a little bit of I have a verbal temper, but, I try to be calm and collected by having perspective on the situation, right? If somebody's coming into this place and they're mad at something and they kind of want to take it out on me, I try to figure out why we're doing that, right? And I found that anger, this is through a lot of therapy, okay? So it's not just me. Is that anger is my protection, right? And so if I'm feeling some sort of anger, it's because I'm feeling like attacked, or something is happening, or I'm feeling unsafe. And so instead of taking that anger and just outwardly showing it, now I'm like, oh, what can I do here to make myself feel safe, right? And what is safer than to embrace somebody sometimes, right? You can calm the situation, you can bring it down, and you can say, hey, what are we doing here? Like, I'm just a funny guy, I'm just an artist. And it brings the whole thing down, right? Because the anger will only lead to more anger, because you will feel unsafe, we will feel unsafe, we will be angry at each other because we feel unsafe. Safety is very important in society, right? And so, and feeling welcomed and safe, I think, makes everything a little bit better, And so I try to do that. Yeah, I try to present that as much as I can.
Thank you very much for sharing that, Roberto. I didn't want you to put I didn't want to put you on the spot that time, but you explained it very well. And you also mentioned that the life that you have right now, and me not being able to guess that was someone that was who you were, someone you were in the past. I wouldn't really see that because of the love that you have been surrounded with, like you said earlier, from your mom, your companions, from strangers that come into the waiting room to share a beer with you. So I think that really did a very big thing for shaping who you really are now. And again, thank you very much for sharing that with us. And I feel that a lot of people could relate to that, then they just don't understand. So thank you for giving them free advice and maybe a free therapy session during this podcast. So thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, I'll add a PayPal fund to my website.
You can add, we'll have your PayPal link. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so I'd like to lighten things up a little bit. So I have here a few questions, just a fun and light segment for the podcast. So can you tell us, Roberto, what's your favorite drink to recommend or serve?
My favorite drink is the Babic. It is a little Pilsner. It's like 11 ounces, so it's not 12 ounces. It's a little smaller. It comes from Belgium. Babic, if you're listening to this, sponsor me. They're my cheapest drink here. They're $5. I feel like they're accessible to everybody. I've never handed it to anybody and they've been like, I don't want this. It actually comes with my personal guarantee that if you don't like it, I'll drink it. Which, it's a fun little thing to say to people. It's putting it down. Yeah. That's my favorite drink to recommend. Okay.
All right. And can you tell us what can we expect when we drink that? Is that sweet? Is that like hard?
It's just a beer. It's just like a San Miguel is what you guys have in the Philippines. Yeah, it's just like a nicer version of San Miguel. It's just according to me, right? Yeah. It's nothing fancy. No, I offered you the cheapest drink I have. I can offer you the fanciest drink I have. I have a pear wine that is made from ice pears. So they get frozen in the vine or in the tree, and then they're put into casks and they're like sat there for a while, and then juice comes out of them. And out of that juice, they ferment it and they make it, and it comes in these really beautiful glass bottles, and they're Danish, and they don't make them anymore. And I sell them here for $45, and they're it's expensive and very delicious. It's sweet. It's great for dessert. You can put it on ice cream. It's got 10% alcohol, so it's very nice.
Wow, that's very, very interesting. That's the first time I actually heard about um that kind of thing that you can have as a dessert. That's very,
And
and
yeah,
the
you can just
process
drink it too if you
itself.
want.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the process itself sounds very difficult, or it sounds very
Hmm. That's why
difficult
they
to do.
stopped making it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's very
Yeah.
interesting. I'm going to look that up more to study more about that. Thank you very much. And also now I also want to ask if the waiting room had an official soundtrack, what kind of music would be playing all night?
This is also fun. I have a Spotify and I post my monthly playlist to the Spotify. So you can
Mm.
actually listen to the waiting room, what I'm currently playing at the month that you're listening to it. And it is a lot of eclectic things. I love music. I listen to so much music. Music is one of my favorite things to have on. It's actually killing me that there's no music on right this second. And and it is eclectic. A lot of Mexican things. I love my Mexico.
Mhm.
And I have a lot of Mexican boleros, and then I've got like more 90s rock stuff, and then
Mhm.
I've got like the more cumbias, and I got things from Colombia, and I got things,
Oh.
I got to get more Filipino things. You got to send me some recommendations, please.
Yeah,
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 I
sure.
love all genres. I
Mm.
I say I never say no to music.
Yeah, and I'm just not sure how much of Filipino music I can recommend you. Maybe some from Apple the app, I'm not sure. Because most of the Filipino music now is actually um evolving. We're more
Yeah,
into, how Japanese pop, they have J-pop,
yeah.
Korean pop, they have K-pop. So now in the Philippines we have P-pop. And
Mm.
I'm not sure if this is something that, the kind of music that you actually want to listen to, but I'll be more than happy to recommend you some moving
Recommend
forward.
it to me. I'll let you know. I'm very
Yeah,
honest.
yeah. Of course. Thank you very much. Okay, and one more
Yeah.
is before we go and look at some of your art, another question is what's something people are always surprised to learn about you? So every time a stranger comes in and then you just go ahead and talk with them, what's something that they always get surprised knowing about you?
Uh, this is something that I actually had on my website, which is guess my age, and you have I
Mm.
asked people to guess my age, which I know for you audio listeners, I'm beautiful and gorgeous. But for you visual viewers, you can see I have bags under my eyes.
Yeah.
But I look younger than I am, and people usually guess that I'm in my 30s, but I'm actually 40 something, 43. So I'm old. I'm older than I look, and that's always surprising to people. I think I have a very young energy and a lot of hair, and
Yeah.
it makes me look a lot younger than I am. But I've
Yeah.
been around the world. Yeah.
That's very surprising. I've
See, I
actually,
told you.
yeah, that's very surprising. I did
Yeah.
not realize you're already over 40. So
Yeah,
if
I'm
you want,
43. Yeah.
if you want to have people, to keep guessing, we can edit that out on the
No,
podcast.
it's
But if
fine.
you're,
It's fine.
yeah.
I should start aging at some point. And people then,
Mhm.
I mean, you look at me and you're like, oh yeah, that guy looks great for his age. I work out every
Yeah.
day.
And I think that's what really contributes to that.
Yeah.
You're very updated in the health that you have, and I think that's very, very important.
Hmm.
And for everybody listening, so Roberto Moya has been through a lot of places in the world, and for those in Spotify, you won't be able to see him. So visit our YouTube, and you'll be able to see how young he looks than what his real age is. So yeah, so thank you very much for sharing that. That's a very fun fact about you. So I was really
Yeah.
shocked. So now, before we wrap up, I'd love for you to show us again one piece of your artwork, and
Hmm.
can you tell the people the story behind it, where it came from, what it means to you, and what you hope
Yeah.
people feel when they see it. There you go.
This is Felicette. She was part of the space program in the French space program in 1963. She went up in space, and they brought her down. And I think it's a beautiful story. And also, I etched. I don't know if you can see it, but into the actual glass, there is the skull and the skeleton of the cat. And so it's kind of a three-dimensional flat piece. But I also, made it with the French flag colors, and some of my
Oh,
fingerprints got on it. And the reason I left them there was because now in the world of AI, I feel like having your fingerprints all over your artwork is a little bit, it gives you a little bit more perspective on it, right? Like it's like AI can't put fingerprints all over everything. So I
right.
left the fingerprints. Yeah.
And it's too bad we can't see the skeleton. I'm not sure if
Yeah.
our audience, or is it just my eyes, we
Yeah.
can't really see the sculpted
It's
skeleton there.
more reason for you guys to come here.
That's good marketing. See it for
Yes.
yourself. That's
Yeah.
very good. Okay, so thank you very much for sharing that.
Yeah.
So I'm quite curious, and I'm like I said, I'm quite curious to know what's next for your what's next for you creatively and for the waiting room? Do you have a new theme in mind, or do you have a new?
So you're meeting me at the point where nobody has seen the painting behind me. I just made this. This is brand new. And I just put it up, and people are going to experience it today for the first time, and I'll get some feedback, and it'll be interesting. But this is the culmination of the artwork that I've been doing for talking to you and presenting this stuff to you. I'm getting to the point where I'm going to present it. And so that's what's next for me is sitting here for the whole summer and having people walk in and having it be experienced, And that's what I'm looking forward to, is my summer picking up and getting more people in here. So that's what's up next for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very exciting. And I can see a little bit about the painting. It's like the beach, or is that a lake?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an island, and it's a series of other islands. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like
it's a landscape.
So I think that's going to add a lot of summer vibes to the waiting room, which I think, again, you mentioned earlier about warmth. So I think that's going to add to the warmth of the waiting room. That's very cool.
Yeah.
And finally, for anyone who's listening today, Roberto, who has in one way or another connected with your story, what message would you want to leave them with?
I would say, like, sometimes just sit and wait and see what happens. Like, right? Like, don't let your first instinct be like, I have to act and get up and act on this, right? Sometimes sit with the feeling and think about it and wait and then move forward and make a nice little plan, even if it's just like what the next step is. Just take it one step at a time.
Okay. And where can people find your work? Where can they visit the waiting room or support what you do?
Yeah, visit me on Instagram at waitroom.com. I mean, waitroom is the name of a username. It's my website is ilikeyouwr.com. WR like waiting room. I like you like I like you. And on the Instagram, you will be able to hit all my links there. Like you can go to my Spotify, you can go to all the other places that you are going to find me. And I post every day. I try to post a story every day, so follow me so you can see the stories. And I try to make them topical and funny. And because I work every day, so that's the topic that I'm here every day.
All right. So thank you very much for giving us where we can follow you, all your social medias. Hopefully we are able to also put a lot more traffic in your websites and in your socials, so they get to, again, experience the waiting room. Roberto, this was such a thoughtful conversation. Thank you for sharing your story, your perspective, and your creativity with us today. And to everyone that's listening, thank you very much for joining us for another episode of the DreamWalk podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share it with someone who would appreciate Roberto's story. Leave a review and follow the podcast for more conversations with people building meaningful lives and businesses. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next episode.